Most people who buy an online business destroy that business within the first year. That's because they don't know what SEO strategy to actually implement, and most importantly, when. Hi, I'm Jaryd Krause. I'm the host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast, and today I'm speaking with Rad Paluszak, who is a web developer and software architect with 20 years experience. He's been a technical mastermind in the SEO industry since 2010. Rad helped Matt Diggity run his SEO agency, The Search Initiative, and Matthew Woodward with the search logistics. He recently just founded Husky Hamster, an outreach link building company, and his SEO agency Non.Agency. Rad's specializations include international and technical SEO, machine learning and understanding, as well as looking at SEO from a business and management's perspective. Now, in this podcast episode, Rad and I talk about how Google uses entities to organize websites, their rankings, and value them in different ways. He breaks that down in a very detailed manner. We just talk about how to understand SEO the easiest way possible by focusing on just the main three elements for SEO that we mentioned in this episode. We also talk about what the helpful content update looks like and what helpful content actually is, and what information you need to find out about your competitors to outrank them. We also talk about what is tech SEO and why you should focus on resolving a few key tech SEO fixes as a launch pad to growing the site that you just bought. We also talk about what you should and should not do after you've bought a site. Then go on to talk about my Growing Online Businesses course that Rad did, that people also do within the community after they've bought their online business, and what he actually learned from it, and so much more. We did talk about sites you're actually going to go away and buy in this podcast episode. So if you're looking to buy a site, make sure you don't do this the hard way. Make it super simple by getting my framework at buyingonlinebusinesses.com/free resources. This framework has helped people save millions of dollars and make millions of dollars and takes the guesswork out of buying a business. So go away and check that out. There's also other resources that are on that page as well. Now, let's dive into the podcast episode. Do you have a website you might want to sell either now or in the future? We have a hungry list of cashed up and trained up buyers that want to buy your content website. If you have a site making over $300 per month and want to sell it, head to buyingonlinebusinesses.co/sell your business, or email us at info@buyingonlinebusinesses.com, because we will likely have a buyer. Details are in the description. Rad, welcome back.
Hello, glad to be back.
I have gotten some really good feedback from the links that you shared in the last podcast episode that I've shared with some people in our community. People are excited and are using them and excited for the path. And they've been asking me questions, wanting me to lay out a little bit more context as well. So it's really good. And I'm excited to dive into this one now today. Just for the listeners, Rad has access to our Growing Online Businesses course. So in the Buying Online Business community, we have the Buying Online Businesses course, which is what a lot of people come for to learn how to buy a business. I also created a course many years ago, and I've been adding to it as well, on how to grow the business once you've purchased it. And Rad's gone through and has got some talking points based off that course and based off his SEO knowledge. And maybe you're either going to debunk some of the things that I mentioned, or hopefully, with my fingers crossed, confirm and reaffirm some of the things that I mentioned throughout that course as well. But I wanted to start off asking you about SEO, right? You have been doing SEO for a long time. People know that from our introductions that I've done for you. It's really easy for people to get confused with SEO because they will listen to multiple podcasts, YouTube videos, read posts, blog posts, hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We're going to put one out soon. We'll link to it in the show notes as well. We'll talk about that shortly, Rad. Read things and get confused and try a million different things, and they get very, very technical. Talk to me about that. How can people ease their mind when it comes to SEO, and how can we simplify it and understand, I guess, the 80-20, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I feel sorry for folks who are just trying out with SEO or buying their first website, and they suddenly have to go through this absolute crash course of everything to do with digital marketing and SEO. That's terrible. I don't know if it was better when I was just starting out or worse for myself but all these materials that are available now, they weren't there. So there was a lot of trial and error and practical stuff that I had to just go through and figure out myself. And I think that saved me, on one hand, from following some advice that might have not been the best for me at the time. On the other hand, that just helped me to gain that practical knowledge, experience, and feel of digital marketing and SEO. But something I would definitely say to someone who's just starting out, or someone who's been playing around with digital marketing and SEO for, let's say, up to a year, more or less experience, that even though we tend to overcomplicate things, in essence, SEO is just three main things. Okay. And I know this is going to sound like something everyone is saying, but it really is just those three main things. It's content, links, and the technical stuff. And all of these three things have their upsides and downsides. So let's go through them one by one. When it comes to the content, content is great because you have full control of your content. It's on your website, so you can access it, you can change it, you can go through it, you have full access to it. It's under your control. Okay. However, the difficulty with that is, especially if you have a content heavy website, a big content website, you're probably talking maybe 200, 300 blog posts. Okay. So that is a lot of content to go through. Well, touch wood, you get, sorry, is that?
It's a lot of content to control and to update and maintain, right? Is
Yeah.
that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. And touch wood, your site is affected with something like helpful content update, which Google has been releasing like more and more recently. First of all, this update affects the entire site as a whole. We say it's affecting the site at the site-wide level. And secondly, Google said, I think just barely today, when we're recording it at least, Gary Ayers said something like, this update penalizes you, but even though you may have fixed what this update has penalized you for, this update or the algorithm is going to wait to give your site a trial period or like a grace period in case you're going to mess the same thing up again. Okay. And how they explained it is, they look at the site. Okay, the site did something dodgy. Okay, maybe it was a mistake, but maybe it wasn't. Okay, so what if they penalized it, the site fixed it, and then the site does it again? So it would be like, all the time cat and mouse, playing catch up or something. Google with the webmaster and, getting penalized, reverting, getting penalized, reverting. So what Google is doing, it will penalize you for a longer period of time, even after you've fixed it. So this is pretty bad. And as we know, at least most of the SEOs would agree with me and are suspecting that this update is mainly focusing on your content. So obviously, you're not only talking about a lot of stuff to go through on your own website, but even though you did that and fixed everything, you may still not have recovered because Google is just testing you because they can. Right now, when it comes to link, okay.
I just wanted to touch on that quickly because this is what a lot of SEOs or want to be SEOs do, is they do try to play a cat and mouse game, and they try to play a game against Google and try and find a shortcut and to do it in a cheaper and easier way and have it not detected by Google. But Google's just going to get smarter and smarter and smarter and end up detecting it. So people are really wasting their time and energy not just doing what Google's going to want for the long term, and have some ideologies around what is going to be best for the users and best for Google long term anyway, rather than play that cat and mouse game. And I'd also like to just expand a bit more on content, because the time of recording this podcast episode and the update happening or us recording it and this being released, this podcast being released, there's been a bit of time between that latest update, which is very fresh for us. But most people don't know what is helpful content. What does it look like? What does helpful? It's easy to think, all right, it needs to be valuable content. Of course. But are there some certain things within that content that make it helpful or make it more helpful?
Yeah, that's a great question. Overall, it's a little bit of a difficult one as well, because to figure out what this helpful in the helpful content, what this adjective helpful actually means in that helpful content, you have to actually look at a few things that Google is doing recently, what they are saying, but at the same time, and this is maybe a little opportunity for me to geek out a little bit, understand how the algorithm works, just because it might be the least of your worries later. I'll start with the way the algorithm works. So Google algorithm works or looks at the world, how it understands everything in terms of entities and connections between those entities. And the thing is, these entities can be pretty much anything. Okay, so an entity could be Jaryd Krause. Okay, it could be Rad Paluszak as one example, but entity could be also something much bigger, like a whole website, like WebMD. This is one big entity, humongous even, that contains a lot of other entities within itself. Or things might be very little, like an entity that is included in the content. So your page is one entity that talks about, I don't know, how to buy a business, okay, and it includes references to some other entities, okay, and best visualize it. I mean, I'm a very visual person, and for me, the easiest way to visualize all of this is to look at the tree, okay. If you look at the tree, the upper branches of the tree, they create like a very complex system overall, and just as complex system is actually created in the roots. Okay, but essentially it's just a visualization how everything connects with each other. But when you talk about the tree, you would also have to have connections between the leaves of the tree to actually represent the exact way how Google looks at the things. And since I'm talking about the leaves and connections between them, entities are just one thing when it comes to Google's understanding, because obviously Google tries to build an entity around everything else. But at the same time, other than entities, what's even, I would say, just as important, as important, or even a little bit more important, are those connections between the entities. Okay, so for example, I don't know, your name might be related to online marketing. Okay, but someone who's a doctor will not be related to digital marketing, obviously. Okay, so. And by the way, as you can see, just from that last sentence, the entities could be not just person or a thing or an object, but also a branch, a niche, like digital marketing, for instance. Okay, so all of that gets like really complicated, and in order to represent it easier within the algorithm, Google looks at everything as it was a vector. Okay, because as a vector, you can mathematically represent everything as a vector, and then that vector, being an entity, contains other vectors, and those are sub-entities or entities related to that vector. Okay, now, so when it comes to the content, and just bearing in mind all of those things about how Google algorithm looks at everything in terms of entities and connections and stuff, there's a couple of things to maybe not exactly tell you what Google will treat as valuable, but definitely will give you a very strong and actionable hint in that direction. Okay, when we're talking a piece of content, let's say we consider content about how to buy a business. Okay, you're a new website in the niche and you want to create that piece of content, and obviously you want this to be basically the best piece of content about that in the entire internet. So what you would do as the first thing, you would go and look at your competitors, right? Because this is like the most obvious thing. And then you would probably jot down what those competitors are talking about, the outline that is repeatable among the competitors, and you would include, all these graphs if they have them, and tables and lists and whatnot, all of the things that the competitors are doing as well. Okay. And then you would think to yourself, because obviously if you look at the competitors who are already promoted by Google, you can think that, yes, so this is basically Google exactly telling me what it's looking for on the website if it's promoting those websites. Okay. But then you would probably discover, through that, I don't know, maybe a little bit more than half of Google is looking for. Okay. Because it's like looking at something taken out of context. Okay. You have that little beautiful thing in the middle here, that's content this outline that you have created, that you can now create and stuff, but you don't know what this content is connected with. Okay, so you're seeing one entity, you're not seeing all the connections and all the supporting entities. And now the easiest thing to discover that would be to look at the competitors' websites, ideally through a tool, so you don't have to do it manually, and find external links that are pointing at this content, okay, because these are kind of like votes of confidence from the internet.
Links that are pointing to that piece of content.
Yep.
Correct. Yeah.
So these are external voices of confidence that point at this content. But then you would also look at the internal links within the website of your competitor, that is all of the other pages within that website that are linking to that page about buying businesses. Okay. And this is important because obviously Google doesn't look at the standalone piece of content, usually doesn't look at the standalone piece of content. Google looks at this piece of content in a neighborhood of other content. And this is what I said about external links. This is external neighborhood, so everyone pointing at that gives you authority. Okay. And let's say the closest neighborhood, which are internal links, would also be pages, as we understand, that are supporting that content semantically. Okay, so there is a term that we use that is called semantic clustering. Okay, and then what it means is basically you have one core piece of content and then a lot of other pages that are around this topic that link and point at that piece of content. But unfortunately for you, being this new site who wants to create an article about buying businesses, you also need to create those other pieces of content to support that one. Okay. And now just to go back very quickly to what I was saying about those entities and connections, I think through all of that, now you can see how these things connect with each other. Those entities on one hand, Google isn't looking at one individual, it's looking at the multi-dimensional vector space or entity space. Okay, and you have to, when you want to create something that is of unique value and high quality, you need to sort of recreate all of these things. And now, and this is a little bit of a bummer, maybe once you've done all of that I've just said, you will be, let's say, just as good as your competitors. Okay, but it doesn't guarantee that you're going to rank better than them. Okay, so what to do to outrank them? And the easiest thing to say is to find things that those competitors aren't talking about. Okay, so maybe try to go out of the internet and develop something or elaborate on something that no one is talking about, but it's clearly connected with buying business.
More context on a different variant of the subject, I guess.
Yes. For example, so that's one thing. But now, when we say content, I think like probably the vast majority of us think text. Okay, but really, you can actually expand on the content and make it much, much, much better. Also by including some videos, including unique graphics or graphs. If you did some research, you can add voice to that content, and all of these little things, they will also essentially add up and complement your written content, which is just text. And just to give you an example, there's this new term in the SEO world called EEAT. Okay, and I've been doing some research around how to rank for what is EEAT in Google Top 10, and I noticed that like 8 out of 10 sites that are currently ranking for that what is EEAT, they have like 2,000, 3,000 words of content. Okay, but there's one outlier that really struck me really weird, because that one page is only like 800 words of content, and that page ranks number 5. And I was like, obviously, I had to dig into it and try to understand what's so special about this page. Has it got like a lot of supporting pages around it, or what is it with it? Okay. And as soon as I saw it, I knew, because that page not only explains the topic, but it embeds like 20 videos of that blogger, mainly, that also talk about that topic. Okay, it includes embedded presentations of that blogger about EAT, and you can look it up. The page is by Lily Ray. She's a pretty prominent figure in the SEO world.
She's been on the podcast, yeah.
Yeah, and she talks a lot about EAT, and obviously, so her page is slightly different. It delivers quality and value in different way through videos and obviously presentations. So it doesn't need that much content on the page. But this one, let's say, side note to that also, since she's talking about EAT so much, Google also connects her entity, her persona with EAT, essentially. So this gives her a big boost in the search results. So, but yeah, so there's a little bit of digging, mainly to looking at your competitors and making your content better than theirs.
Yeah, awesome. So that's helpful content, is making it better and more valuable than our competitors, and understanding how our competitors are doing it through different entities, and entities being interlinked in different ways, from niche to the person, the identity of that person, to the domain, to external links and internal links. I love it. Thanks. That was a long explanation, but it really gave us a good picture on how we can create content that is more helpful than our competitors, and understand why our competitors may be outranking us based on these different levels of entities that are interlinked in different ways. So that's content. So we did go deep down the rabbit hole there, and we talked about it in a technical aspect. But at the end of the day, it's just under that content umbrella, and you could go very far deep down the rabbit hole on how to create better content, of course. But at the end of the day, it's just really good content. So that's one facet or one element of SEO. What are the other 2 out of the 3 that you mentioned?
Yep. So the second one would be definitely links. And I am always split internally whether content is more important or is it links. Because I think
can we have a bit of an argument? Can we have a bit of an argument on both sides, or can you share a bit on like maybe two reasons why you're more content, and then 2 reasons why you're more into links?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Maybe that's another episode in itself. Content versus links, which is more valuable?
Yeah,
maybe we just go down the rabbit hole there.
Just very quickly, okay? So if you think about it, without content, you can't rank usually, okay? There are some exceptions, but content is like the fundament on which the link building should be built on overall. Because if you don't have content, you're basically wasting your links, okay? Because even if they point at your page, Google cannot gain the relevancy signals because it doesn't have anything to draw those relevancy signals from if there's no content. Okay. Now, on the other hand, I've seen sites throughout the years and recently, and I think I'm going to be seeing those sites or similar cases in the future too, where the content hasn't changed for a long period of time, and the rankings haven't changed for a long period of time. But then as soon as you push it a little bit with a few links, boom, it starts ranking in top 10, for example, if it was just hanging on the second or third page. Okay, sometimes the content is just not enough of what you need. Okay, so yeah, I mean, the most diplomatic thing to say is you just need both.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, just wanted to say, when it comes to links are this weird element where they are relatively easy to gain. Okay, because you have a lot of link building companies, like for example Husky Hamster, low product placement here.
I'll put a link to them in the show notes, guys. We use them for link building as well. So it is an affiliate link, but check it out.
Thank you.
They're really good.
Yeah, so links are relatively easy to get. Okay, but the problem with them is you usually have little control of what's happening with that link. So usually, especially if you're doing decent outreach, which is one of the methods that Google isn't that much against overall. So you're placing links on external websites, okay? And then someone who owns that website can take it off, or they can switch off the website, or they can like delete the article, and you're losing that link. So overall,
website gets hit by an algorithm update and your link is non-valuable anymore.
Yeah, or if the site overdoes sharing links with other sites, let's say, it might even turn toxic in some cases. Yeah. So yeah.
So guys, you need to be very careful of the links that you do get to make sure they are going to be good links for a long period of time. And I'm sure that when you do link building, if you were to do it yourself, you would need to understand how to vet and do your due diligence on each site that you're going to gain a link from before you do outreach to. So you're only outreaching to the right sites. Of course, link outreach is it's a big time suck. I don't recommend people to do link building themselves, and usually recommend people to go away and check out a few different agencies. Hence why I don't do it myself either and use you guys. So that's links. What's the third? I mean, so content, you got full control. Links, relatively easy to gain, but you got somewhat control on the links you gain, but you got no control after you've gained that link. And then what's the third element of SEO? So guys, there's three elements of SEO. We don't want to make it too confusing. We're diving into context within each one, but there's just three main things I guess you need to focus on, right? Mm-hmm. Content, links, and what's that last one?
Yeah, and the last one is technical stuff or technical aspects of the site. So with this one, I grew up being a web developer, and that is by far my favorite one. Although it's relatively the most difficult one to grasp because it has so many weird nuances, so many weird or different technologies that you sometimes have to know a gist of them to actually like properly audit everything. Okay. Now that's on the bad side. On the good side is the technical stuff. In most cases, so there's two good things about it. In most cases, it's a one-off job, okay? Because if you fix the technical issues once, very rarely I would say, based on my experience, these things would come back. Okay. I mean, of course, I'm assuming that you fixed them in a proper way and didn't just, put a little
Put a
leaf
Band-Aid
over
on it.
them and hit them
Yeah.
or chuck them under the carpet, right?
As long as you're not trying to play games against Google still.
Yeah. And so, yeah, by the way, I read recently on LinkedIn that everyone is nowadays talking about shortcuts. But essentially, there's no shortcuts because 99.9% of time you just gotta do things.
Totally agree.
So yeah,
That's a
that's
philosophy that I carry in everything.
yeah. I mean, it obviously applies to all aspects of SEO, but especially with the technical, where you want to just get it over with, just get it done, and pretty much forget about it. You don't want to use any weird shortcuts. And the other good thing about the technical stuff, although one that still means that SEO's job is to take care of them, okay, but overall Google can forgive you a lot when it comes to technical stuff. Okay, Google algorithm has been getting better and better at understanding some mistakes that are recurring on the internet. And obviously, since Google has a lot of data, they can figure out a lot of common mistakes that webmasters or site owners make. And Google algorithm is actually able to maybe not fix them for you, but at least not take them into consideration against you. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
this isn't, like I said, to say that, oh yeah, off I go, I can take a nap now, forget about all the technical stuff, because it's still there. And as me being an SEO, essentially, my job is to make things as easy for Google as possible. Okay, so even though Google is able to, for example, find some duplicate content or duplicate pages on your site and choose between them which it prefers, our job as site owners, as SEOs, would be to actually make that choice for Google, because, well, Google is just a machine. It's just an algorithm. It might get it wrong. It might choose content that we don't necessarily want it to choose. And over relying on Google's algorithm to do stuff for us usually means that we're trying to take a shortcut, and it's better to just properly fix something and not worry about it ever again. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the technical stuff.
A lot of the time, we'll talk about what to do once somebody's bought a site and how to grow it once they've bought it. A lot of the time, what I like to tell people to do is to first and foremost have a look at the technical aspect and see what technical SEO issues they can get cleared up, because that really creates a great platform for them to build on if there's technical things to work on and to resolve, right? Issues with Google Search Console. I guess we'll just give it like a brief of a few things that you can fix with technical SEO. I'll mention a few, and I'll let you mention a few that I miss out. So we're talking about broken links. We're talking about meta descriptions, title, tags, H1s. We're talking about broken images, issues with Google Search Console. There's a long list, but what are some of the other key ones that you would add to that list of things to be looking at when you're going to do a bit of a tech audit?
Well, usually I would say page speed, but I want to make a little footnote here with the page speed. So this is actually based on mainly my experience, but it happens that Google has actually confirmed it very recently. I think at PubCon in at the end of February, that if you're a small site, small to medium business, page speed issues are very rarely affecting you in a negative way. Okay, they are there. Okay, users may experience some slowdown on your site, but it's not to say that it's dragging you down. It's just to say that you're at this level and you're not going farther. Okay, fixing page speed issues can in the long term enable you, as the site grows, obviously the page speed issues become more and more prominent and more and more important. So it's not to say to completely forget about them, but just take a note of them. If you know how to measure their impact, and then if you decide, okay, so this is a quick fix, but something that might potentially help me, so then fix it, because it gives you leverage. Although if it's something that is only there to, I don't know, satisfy a tool that you're using to audit your site, so it's no longer coming up in red, then it's and especially if it on top of that costs you a lot of money to fix, because some issues with the templates are pretty costly to fix, then
Definitely.
obviously it wouldn't necessarily be beneficial for you. Okay. Now, so you mentioned Google Search Console. I think if there isn't by now a book about Google Search Console and fixing issues in Google Search Console, this should be on. We should maybe come up and come together and create one. But there's a lot of things that you can actually notice in Google Search Console. There's crazy stuff like crawl stats, so you can find out how often Google is crawling your site, even how much data it downloads from your site. But this, for example, again, that would be important for a big site. One place in Google Search Console that I always look at are coverage issues or indexability issues. Okay. And with this one, also, there are things that Google would be just pointing out to you, like, for example, redirects. Okay. Because usually redirects are a normal occurrence on the internet. Although, well, it's all it all needs to be inspected, right? And with the indexability issues, while we're at it, I would like to mention also some canonical issues, some no index issues, right? Cleaning up the website from the stuff or blocking the stuff that you maybe or perhaps want users to see, but this is something that is like totally not important for the algorithm, like login page, for example, or my account page, which is quite often accessible even on big shops or some Shopify websites, for instance. And you just don't want Google to be seeing that, because there's nothing to see. But there's a lot of this stuff. What I would do, so first of all, when we approach a new website, a new client that comes to work with us, we have two-way approach, okay, or two possible routes that we take. First one is we audit absolutely everything, and that is very useful for clients who only ordered an audit with us, or we're working with sites that we presume this is going to be a one-off thing, because if you're doing a big audit, obviously it takes a lot of time. It points out a lot of these things. We, for example, prioritize it, but I know a lot of agencies, a lot of consultants, when they perform an audit, they don't necessarily prioritize things. They just give you a full dump of issues and off you go. This is everything that is broken on the site.
It's more confusing than anything. When those SEOs do a link audit, it's like, here's everything that you need to do, and it just makes people overwhelmed without a starting point.
Yeah. But so, I mean, our approach at least prioritize things. I usually put them in three buckets. Priority number one, which are like stoppers and things that not only hold you back, but things that are literally breaking your SEO or not allowing you to rank to your full potential. Priority number two are things that should be fixed because they may potentially block or put a glass ceiling on your rankings, let's say. And priority number three, these are all the things that we know about, but they might not necessarily be wise to have your time, energy, or resources invested into them at the moment, because they're good to have fixes, not necessarily something that will enormously help you. Okay. But the other approach is, and this is something I do for my own websites, for some assets that we have for affiliate or ad revenue as well. This is an approach we also do with clients that are with us for a longer period of time, like a monthly rolling campaign. And that's where we only audit things that we see are the most important at the moment, and we fix them. And then we re-audit stuff and we fix that stuff, what we find there. And we basically have this almost in an agile / scrum approach, where we have a monthly or 6 weeks long sprint where we audit things and then fix them, and audit and fix. And that works really well, because incrementally you're implementing fixes that are already helping you. So you're basically you can see the results much faster overall too.
Yeah, I can attest to this. I really like that approach, because I've had an audit done by you guys, and we've got people that have come and worked with you and have told me great feedback on the results they're getting through that method of audit, work on the priority thing, and then re-audit, work on the priority thing, because that's what's getting the results faster, rather than just doing one audit and then going through the checklist until it's done. Whereas new things may pop up that are going to get you faster results, because it's an ever-evolving landscape.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I like to avoid going into the rabbit hole of SEO, and where you're so focused on little things that you don't see or don't have
80/20.
time to see something that is hurting you even more, right?
And that's easy to do in tech SEO, is to, compared to, say, content and links. I think it's easy to get caught in the rabbit hole of tech SEO, because there's always going to be a list of things that can be done, and it's hard to know when to go, all right, is this, me working on this task any further, actually going to make it better? It's kind of like concreting. Usually they have a typical saying around concreting. When you're concreting, if you just keep trying to make it better and better, usually you make it worse. Because you get so deep in it, and then you just keep trying to touch it and do different things, and you end up with a Frankenstein, structure at the end.
Yeah. So I really like this this saying that the only way to do a thing is to do it. So it's like, you can be spending a lot of time on auditing something very deeply, very thoroughly, but is it really worth it? My let's say rule of thumb is, if I spent initial 1 to 2 hours on the website, I already have a vision, have some enough of understanding into what this website has in terms of the SEO issues and blockers and important stuff, that I can obviously add on top of that while I'm writing the actual document and filling up the gaps in the audit. But essentially, if there's something that I haven't seen in that initial period of time, or let's say following a couple of hours when I'm actually conceptualizing and finishing off the main part of the audit, if I missed that in that period, then that means it's probably not important, because if it was important, I would have seen it by now.
With that, when somebody, and we'll run through this at a high level without getting too far down the rabbit hole in each step, I teach people how to grow sites once they've bought them. I've got that course that I mentioned earlier. Typically, I tell people to just own the site for a little bit, understand it, and in that period, you can do you can check on the site and learn to know more about the site inside and out. What's your take on, once somebody's bought a site, to start working on it and growing it? Where should somebody start? What do you feel is the 80/20 in that aspect for people listening? This is under SEO, of course, like SEO growth, not talking about other other areas.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I second what you said about getting to know the website, because that is like the biggest and the most important thing, to know your own website. Okay. So yeah, I usually make an audit of, what content is on this site, what is at the back end. I mean, hopefully it's WordPress, because that makes a lot of stuff much, much, much easier than if it wasn't WordPress or Shopify for the
I
sake
once
of
had a
it.
site that was on a different platform like Joomla, and it was just too much, and I had to change it to WordPress straight away.
Yeah,
Well, I waited a little bit, but it's Anyway, that's
it's
a different.
amazing how much stuff you can get out of the box when you're on WordPress, because there's probably, if you think about something, there's probably a plugin for it already. And I'm not saying that using plugin for every little thing is great, because obviously plugins are pretty heavy themselves and they may slow down the site. But if if you're just working with your first site, or one of the first sites, and you don't really know what you're doing that well, and you don't want to spend a ton of time researching stuff, then just find a plugin and you'll be fine, or find someone who's going to do it for you, for example, obviously. But yeah, I inspect what's on the back end, what are the plugins that are already there, what's the theme. I try to get to know this a little bit better. um, and then the other thing is, obviously it's not much applicable for me as an agency, or for you, for example, who are working with those sites, but I would go and subscribe to some tools. Okay, and there's a few tools that I would definitely recommend from the get-go. Ahrefs is my go-to. As a cheaper alternative, if you don't want Ahrefs, it's Ubersuggest. It has decent data, not very much comparable to Ahrefs, but enough to give you an idea of what keywords your site is currently ranking for, all of them, so you can do exports, you can narrow down what are the low-hanging fruits to attack them, and somehow devise a plan of attack. The second tool that I would definitely subscribe to is Sitebulb. I'm absolutely not affiliated with them, but they are awesome. The company is great. The tool is absolutely kick-ass. Just to briefly say what it does, it's a crawler where you can basically feed it your website URL, and then it goes through every single page on the site, gathers all the images, analyzes the site basically for you. And one thing that Sitebulb is unique in this aspect, it gives you great hints based on the automated crawl out of the tool, out of the box. So even if you don't really know what you're doing, you're trying to perform your very first tech audit, you plug your site into Sitebulb, let it crawl it, and then look at the results. It gives you a full report. It tells you what's broken. Doesn't necessarily or always tell you how to fix it, but it has links to, I think, their knowledge base where they elaborate a little bit more about the issue. So at least that already gives you a lot of material to work with in terms of how to fix this stuff. And then,
so great. So once somebody bought a site, just because we've gone into each subject a bit deeper, an overview, I guess, is once they've bought it, leave it and learn it. Check the theme, check the plugins, do a crawl of the site using some SEO tools and understand the performance of it. I guess that all of that gets done before you even start making changes, right? What else? What else? Where would you go from there?
Yeah, auditing part, I would just relate to those three elements that we mentioned earlier. Obviously, content, links, and tech stuff. I mentioned tech stuff with Sitebulb. Content, well, there isn't really much of a tool to analyze that at scale, but I would definitely look at keywords versus pages, which would be Ahrefs in this case. Another tool great for analyzing the content and comparing it to competitors is Surfer SEO. That's awesome. Now, in terms of links, this is, again, we're talking about Ahrefs because it gives you a big list of links. However, if you're going with a different tool or want to complement Ahrefs data with something else, you also have a great source of links, which is free, sorry, and it's included in Google Search Console. So Google itself is giving you a list of links. It gives you basically a dump of links. So all of them doesn't give you much of any details about them as Ahrefs would, but at least you can see where those links are coming from. You can review them and audit them in a spreadsheet or something, for example. So yeah, you buy a site, you get to know it, wait, audit it, and then make some sort of strategy before you do anything. Create a strategy, right? Think about how to expand the site, how to fix whatever you're going to fix, how to create new content or what content.
For sure. I have in that course there a strategy on keyword research, how to create content, make sure your content is better than your competitors, or the best. What I like to say is any keyword that you try to rank for, it should be the best piece of content on the internet for that keyword. And then what's entailed in that in terms of like what we already mentioned through the helpful content of like more videos, more audio, better context in less content. I like the idea of like 3,000 word posts versus an 800 word post. An 800 word article is ranking just as well. The reason I like that or think it's valuable is because that article can share the same level of value, if not more, with less words. Mm-hmm. And that's great for the user. Nobody wants to read a novel on how to change the text or the font on their WordPress site, right? Just give me a quick, simple answer.
Yeah, exactly. And so with that, you got to think of the user, okay? Because essentially user is the most important thing here. Obviously, we're optimizing for the search engines. We're doing everything for the search engines to like us because, well, this is where our traffic is coming from. But what is the traffic? It's actual folks, clicking through to your site, human beings, the user. Okay, so when you make the site better for the user, I think Google will appreciate it too. And seeing the evolution of Google over the last few years, content, helpful content updates, recent ones, and now what they're saying about potentially incorporating a chat bot in the search results. Maybe by the time this episode is released, it's already live. I don't know, but yeah, essentially, it's the human being at the core of it. Okay, and Google's been doing everything it could, and I know it's nice and sounds kind of like salesy from their point of view, from their mouth, where they say, "Oh, we want to try the internet a better place." Okay, but if you think about it, with all the stuff that they're pushing, with the updates, with the importance of quick websites and useful websites, I think it actually boils down to that. And if you're thinking long term,
they've already done it. I think they've already done it. Really, without Google, like if you need to learn something, you need to find something, you're going to go to Google. Like they have made the internet a better place already, and they just want to maintain it, I guess.
And so it all boils down to what you said at the beginning of this episode. You got to think long term, right? And I actually have a little quote from the course that you said.
My course?
Yeah, your course that I really loved. You said, make sure your content is the most amazing content on the internet for your niche topic and focus on that. So I think that sums it up.
Oh, awesome. I love it. All right, we'll leave it with that. Thank you so much. Guys, we mentioned different links like Surfer, Sitebulb, Ahrefs, Ubersuggest. All those links are going to be in the show notes, but also I'm going to put links to what you guys do, Rad, link building, which I've experienced, and content as well, content packages, which I've experienced working with you guys too. Check out those two. These guys are awesome at what they do. Now, the reason I'm plugging these guys is because I never knew who Rad was. And I got him to come on to talk about link building many episodes ago. And when I did, I was looking for SEOs to help me in different areas, content, links, and a whole bunch of different things, tech, SEO. And then I spoke to you, Rad, and I was like, wow, I didn't even know you existed. And then I considered you in the group of a bunch of different other SEOs that I was already auditing and speaking to myself. And then decided to start working with you guys over them because of the level of value you guys offered for the packages you had and the price point. And with that, also speaking to your partner and yourself at the same time, Rafal, the story of how you got into creating non-agency, your SEO company, being that a lot of people were coming to you for link building through Husky Hamster, and you're like, yep, this is good. We can build you a link. I remember you telling us this story. We could build you a link to this page, but you're not going to get the
wasn't optimized.
Yeah, it's not going to get the results you want because there's other things you need to change on the site to have it optimized to get value from this link. And you gave them suggestions and then they didn't do it. And then you're like, stuff it. We're an SEO. We know what we're doing. Like, if you want us to do it, we can do it for you. But this needs to be done first before we actually sell you a link package. And I just thought that was really cool. And that brought a lot of trust from me. And I wanted to share that story with everybody publicly because I've shared that with a few different people privately through coaching sessions and stuff. But yeah, thanks for what you guys are doing. And I'll put links to what they're doing, guys, in the show notes. So check that out. And Rad, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you very much. Thanks for great words about us.
Yeah, so welcome. Deserved. Much deserved. All right, guys, speak to you soon.
Hey, YouTube watcher, if you thought that video was good, you should check out this video here on the 2 best types of websites beginners should buy. Or check out my playlist on how I made my first 100K from buying websites and how to do due diligence. Check it out. It's an awesome playlist. You'll enjoy it.